Yo, no rap. Green Bay faithful, talking with me on a chase to a Super Bowl. Fans still suck, let me let you know. We're the kids, bringing trophies home. Cheeseheads, me living this. Victory tastes sweeter than licorice. Got that Lamborghini spirit. Opponents just fear it. Y'all can hear it now.
What is up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. This is the Matt Ramage Show. We have a guest tonight. We're going to talk about some Green Bay Packers, maybe some old-time Green Bay Packers, some current stuff coming up. You got Jair to talk about. Romeo Dobbs is kind of names getting thrown out there a little bit. But before we bring in the guests, a big shout-out to Nick Law. If you ever get injured in a car accident, you need help dealing with those insurance companies, Nick Law is going to treat you like family. They're going to take care of you real good. And you're gonna be glad that you chose Nick Law. Hopefully you don't need him, but if you ever get injured in an accident, you need some help dealing with those insurance companies, be sure to check out nicklaw.com, and you can find out all the details if you forget on social media. They're everywhere, you know what I mean? And of course, Quick Trip. This episode fueled by Quick Trip. You're coming to a game this coming up season, never been to Wisconsin before. You see that Quick Trip sign, you know that they're going to take care of you. You can get all the tailgate needs you got beer, ice, whatever, cheese curds. You got the hot and go, the spot over there. So they're going to take care of you, get some food, get some fuel, and all that good stuff. Sorry, my voice is tweaking out there. But let's bring on the guests tonight. We're going to talk some Green Bay Packers football. Be sure to hammer the chat. Hey, and this is Greg. What's up, Greg? Thanks for joining me. Oh yeah, I got you muted from before. Hang on, let me I do that every single time. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Happy, what is it, Thursday? That's what I believe the day it is. I've been losing track.
Yeah.
But, how you doing? Thanks for coming on. For people who don't know, Greg is you follow me on Facebook, you comment a lot, seeing your name. I'm like, hey, you should jump on a live stream and talk to football, because you obviously know what you're talking about more than I do, for sure. And so I thought, why not have you come on?
I don't know if I know more than you do or not, but I've got a couple of years on you, Matt. I know that. So, I'm always happy to talk Packers. Even though I'm living here in Tennessee now and I've been here a while, the Packers are in my heart, and I'm diehard until I'm not around anymore. So
hopefully that's not for a long, long time. So you talked about there, you're a little bit older, a little bit up in the age than I am. So how did you become a Packer fan? Because you were around for those early days that a lot of people don't want to talk about that much.
Well, like you and I chatted a little bit before we came on live here. I kind of grew up with it. It just became part of a Sunday routine where when it got to be noontime and the Packers were playing a noon game, we were all circled around the TV, and I even have to laugh when I think about it sometimes, because my mom seemed to think that when she was in the room, the Packers weren't doing as well. So when she left the room, they'd play much better, according to her. So, but it was just something that I grew up with, and of course, in the '60s, they were winning championships every other year, pretty much seemed like. And then, of course, you had the Ice Bowl and the first couple of Super Bowls. So it was easy to be a Packer fan in the '60s. They were pretty much dominating with Lombardi as the coach, and I'm sure people remember the players, Bart Starr and Horning and Taylor and those kind of people. So.
Yeah, so I think that's how most Packer fans kind of became fans. It's like I always tell people, it wasn't a choice. Like on Sundays, like you say, the family was there. We were the only ones with like a big TV. So my uncles, my cousins, everyone would come over. I ended up breaking that TV. I don't want to talk about it. In case my mom's watching, she might still be mad. But yeah, everyone would come over. My neighbor, who's a good friend of mine, was a Bears fan. They jokingly would like kick him out on Sundays. Like, you can't be around here. We don't need, because the Packers were bad. That was the '80s. That was like late '80s.
Right.
But yeah, that's what it is. It's all about family. I want to get to a few comments here, then we'll get back to that. Alexander says, awesome that you bring real fans on the show. Yeah, I think that's what this show is about. That's why I want to start a call-in show, or actually I'm starting it, trying to figure out the details. But I have a number. I don't have it up right here. But I want people to call in and leave voicemails and be a part of the show because I think that's what makes it fun. Just talking to people, talking Packers. Everyone should have a voice. You know what I mean? And we got a few more here. Matt Ramage, what's up, bud? How are you, buddy? You're a true inspiration, man. Keep doing your thing, brother. I appreciate that a whole bunch. And Tom says, I assume Greg is a volunteer fan. His thoughts when Reggie White came to Green Bay. That's a good one. So what's up with that, Greg? Because like you said, we talked before. Big Tennessee guy. And you were talking about how that's all college. It's more college love over there than it is NFL.
Right. And Reggie came to Green Bay in the early 90s. I didn't move down here to Tennessee until 2004. So I was still in Wisconsin, and still a big time Packer fan when Reggie came to Green Bay. Yeah, he had a great career here in Tennessee when he was a college player. There's no question about that. A lot of great NFL players have come out of the University of Tennessee program. Um, but Reggie was a free agent and signed with the Packers, and then along comes Brett Favre, and they start to add some of the other people, and pretty soon you've got a Super Bowl team. So,
Yeah.
Landing Reggie in the early 90s, getting him to come to Green Bay after he played all those years in Philadelphia was a pretty big catch for the Packer organization. No question about that.
Yeah, it changed the whole thing. But before we talk about that, let's take it back. You obviously watched some crazy games, some games I probably don't even know exist. Like you know what I mean? That I never really talk about too much. But going back to like your childhood and like becoming a Packer fan and starting to know what's going on. What are some games that you remember as a kid that like made you like, man, I love this game?
Well, you might recall, Matt, that when we talked, that I worked for the morning newspaper in Green Bay. So I was assigned to the visitors' locker room. So when the game ended, my interviews were in the visitors' locker room. Another guy I worked with did the Packers. So when I covered the Packers, they weren't very good. Now I'll give you an example of kind of game that I remember. In 1979, the Packers were 5-11. That was their record, and they were lucky to score 15 points a game. Okay, that was their offense. Could barely score 15 points a game. They were last in defense. Okay, so they had a Monday night game scheduled against New England. New England had an excellent team. They had a bunch of all pro players, and they were coming into Lambeau against a pretty poor Packer team on a Monday night. So the initial impression, I think, among most people was this game wasn't even going to be a close one. That New England was just going to easily win the game. Well, the game started, and if I remember right, New England got the opening kickoff, went down the field, and got down to the 2-yard line, and the Packers stopped them on 4 plays at the 2-yard line. They didn't score. And then all of a sudden, the game switched. And the Packers started to make plays, and the defense had caused a couple turnovers, and they beat New England on a Monday night 27-14 when nobody really thought they had a chance to win that game. So that was one game that kind of stuck with me. Like I said, they only won 5 games that year, so there wasn't a lot to get excited about. But that was a big win on a Monday night, national TV audience, and all of that. So
yeah, that was the year I was born. So
yeah.
like, I don't remember that one. We're gonna get to a few more comments here. Jesse says, "Sorry I missed you at the draft. We will have to meet up sometime. Definitely like the new pictures on the fence. Yeah, that they got a new fence over there at Lambeau Field. Yeah, the draft was amazing. That was I think that's one of the more fun times I've ever had in my life, especially like say Packers related. All right, so let's go back to like you were covering the Packers, and you were telling me before it was a paper that was like a rival of the Press Gazette kind of thing. Is that what it
That's
was?
right. Yeah, it was started by some people that had worked. Well, the publisher had worked at the Press Gazette, and he left there and wanted to have a morning paper that kind of went up against the Press Gazette, even though the Press Gazette came out in the afternoon. Um, and I was in college at the time, and I was sending out resumes, and they called me and interviewed me for a sports writing job. There were only three of us on the staff for this small morning paper, but like I said earlier, I got assigned to the visitors' locker room for all the Packer home games. At that time, they were playing in Green Bay and Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So my
What year
job
was
was
that about? What year was
79.
79? That was when you were doing that.
Yeah,
So
right.
who is like one of the memorable people that you interviewed?
Um, well, I interviewed Archie Manning.
All right.
I interviewed. He was kind of at the tail end of his career, but I talked to O.J. Simpson, Walter Payton. You remember
That's
a guy
amazing.
named Harold Carmichael? He was a tight end.
I'm not sure I know that one.
Yeah, he was a tight end for Philadelphia, and his claim to fame was, I think, if I remember right, having caught a pass in just a huge number of consecutive games. And the guy
All
was
right.
like six. The guy was like 6'8". So he was easy to spot on the field. Um, and then some. I did a lot of the coaches' comments after the games too. So I talked to Bud Grant. Um, uh, John McKay was coaching Tampa Bay. I talked to him. Trying to think of who some of the other coaches were that people might know back then, because we're going back over
Yeah.
40 years ago. So
Dude, I'll say what about Archie Manning? Because like he's the guy who um obviously everyone knows Peyton Manning, the whole that's kind of where that family tree thing started. How
right.
was he? How was he and like all the other players? Like were they because after a game you're in the Vizian locker room, were they kind of riled up? Was it was everyone how was it interviewing people back then, especially Manning?
Well, it's always easier to interview people when they've won the game. Um,
Yeah.
but in the case of Archie Manning, the Packers actually, he was with New Orleans then, and the Packers actually won that game. But if you have an impression of Peyton Manning and his personality, Archie's the same way. Very friendly, very polite. Um, Stood there and answered questions from me, probably longer than he needed to. So any impression you have of Peyton or Eli, um, his father is exactly like that.
All right.
Very, 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 very nice.
Yeah, I like Peyton. It's interesting because like during the press conferences, he was like pretty business like. He was friendly, but he was business like, especially if they lost. But like after or like even when he wasn't into football mode, the
Right,
commercials, everything he does, he's hilarious. They do that Monday night show, him and Eli.
right.
I think it's hilarious. I love they do all that they do. But yeah, that's awesome that you got to interview like some pretty amazing players.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the fun part of the job. I mean, I covered the game too, and I did some game stories. But what I enjoyed was when I could get these guys one on one, whether it was after a game or in the case of the Packers, if I was covering training camp and I could talk to somebody that was trying to make the team
Yeah.
and say, hey, how do you think practices are going? Is this a lot different than what you thought it would be? You played college ball, now you're in the big time. and really getting to know the guys. That's the part that I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, I think that's like the players that I've got to talk to. I think that's cool because I don't ask like media type questions because obviously there's better people to do that than me. I like to find out like who they are, what do they like, what do they do, um,
Right.
just kind of ask fan type questions. And actually, coming up here, there's a Packer rookie that might be coming on my podcast. I don't want to say a name because until I get it done for sure. But that's good. But like interviewing rookies to me is harder because I've interviewed like Kingsley Kiki, other rookies throughout the last few years, and I feel like they're the hardest to interview because you don't know much about them. And at least for me, because especially I was new then, so I wasn't really good, and I wasn't doing the research. I wasn't really. I think I'll
Right.
be better this time. But I definitely think of rookie because like if I get like I had Preston Smith on, I knew all about Preston Smith. I liked watching plays. My favorite player. I mean I could talk to him for 3 hours, ask him stuff. You know what I mean? I never would have ran. No, but the rookies, it's harder. But I do think it's cool to see because they're coming into the league. Like who did they look up to? Who do they kind of like put their game around, and just find out like who they are, especially like if they come from a big city coming to Green Bay. I think that's interesting too.
Right. Right. And the Green Bay job that I had was my first job as a sports writer, and I had covered a lot of high school and college, but I hadn't really covered any professional sports at all. So I know what you're talking about when you're kind of unsure what to ask them and what direction. And sometimes rookies and free agents are very cautious in interviews anyway about what they say. They may have some exposure to the media when they were in college, but they're very careful sometimes about
Oh yeah, for
uh,
sure.
what approach they take with reporters. So, but I know that feeling of not being real sure, what to ask them and kind of what direction you're going in. Hopefully, I got a little better at it the more I did it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. The more you do it, you definitely do. And I get like players being cautious, especially like about like coming on my podcast is not necessary, so they're putting themselves in unnecessary. Like if it was someone who wanted to get a viral video asking some crazy question, controversial stuff, but I
right,
don't do that, and I think that's what helps. Like other players come on my podcast, so other players know. All right, he's not a bonehead. He's not gonna try to
right,
ask some. I basically ask the most softball questions ever because like I just try to get the fans' point of view. There's me. I mean, they talk to
right.
the media. They'll ask all those good questions, but so
Well,
no, go
And
ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that I kind of took that approach that the more they saw my face, especially with the Packer players that were trying to make the team, the more comfortable they were that, hey, this guy's a local guy. You're not going to sabotage me in the paper by writing something, that makes me look bad or anything like that. So there's a comfort level the more they see you, and like on your show, um, you're becoming a face up there in Green Bay. There's no question about that. You're on the local stations, you're getting airtime, all that kind of stuff. And then when you approach a player, they're going to go, okay, this guy's from the area. We've seen him, we've heard about him, and makes it much easier to get an interview and to talk to people.
Yeah, I think when they trust you and they know that you're on their side a little bit, because I get media people have a job to do, but that
Right.
that isn't me at all. So I want to ask you, like, so what years were you covering the Packers?
Was basically like 78, 79, 80, that time period. Um, Prior to that, I was in college and I was writing for the university newspaper. I was doing sports for them, sports for some local newspapers, the Oshkosh paper, the Appleton paper. Basically, whatever I could get to cover, high school, college, whatever somebody would assign me to. And I didn't even care about getting paid. I just said, do me one favor, put my name on the story. Give me a byline
Yeah,
so I could kind of take that and go, see, I wrote this story about this game. So
that's
um,
awesome.
yeah, that's kind of how I got started into it, and then then it became moving to Green Bay and covering the Packers for a while. So
that's awesome. We got a comment here for you. A question. Rich McKay was hilarious as Tampa's coach. Any good sound clips from him when you talked? That's why I asked you like what years you did it. Because I was wondering
right.
about like Ditka, because you're talking about like you're in the visitors locker room. Because whenever he talked, dude, I love Ditka. I love
Yeah.
like watching all his press conferences, especially like in the Saints. Like later on when they were horrible and the media's coming at him, and he's just like, "Shut up." But do you have any cool stories like that?
I didn't have any. I didn't have any direct contact with Ditka, but the question there about McKay. Let's just say some of what he said I can't repeat on your show,
I
and
appreciate that.
Tampa Bay was thrown into the division there for a while with the Packers and the Vikings, the Lions, and the Bears. Why they thought Tampa Bay should be in there, I have
Yeah.
no idea. But now they're in with Atlanta and teams down in their part of the country. But yeah, he would. I'm trying to think of the line that he was really known for. Something about their offense, Tampa Bay's offense, and he said something like somebody asked him about the offense, and he said, "Well, I'm in favor of it." In other words, we don't have an offense, so I'm in favor of us having one. You know, that's not a direct quote, but that's what he meant.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I like it when coaches. I like even Belichick when he was like being quiet and like we're on to Cincinnati. I thought that was great. Like I like it when coaches are funny. Like sometimes it's words. Sometimes like Belichick, I always laugh. I don't know if he was my coach. I mean, I guess if they're winning Super Bowls, I wouldn't care. But yeah,
Right.
I think it's fair. Like Ditka back in the day. There's not many coaches I don't think today who are super funny. Like even McCarthy was good. Like when he got heated after like a loss,
Right.
and he would like snap
Right.
back at reporters. That was always entertaining. But yeah,
Well, Bart Starr was the coach when I was covering the Packers,
all right,
and Bart Starr was one of my favorite players growing up. Um, but when he was the head coach, he was pretty serious most of the time. I mean, if Bart cracked a smile about something, it was pretty rare. He was pretty straightforward and serious, with the media. So
yeah. I always wondered that because I remember. I mean, I don't remember like as a kid too much, but like I've seen all like the Bart Starr like the pictures and the video when he was, but I don't have like memory. I was born in '79, so like so how was he as a coach? And like and that team, because Bart Starr was so loved like as a quarterback, and he still is. He'll be forever loved in Green Bay. But when those teams weren't doing well, did like the media give him a break because it's Bart Starr? Like was he like revered that way then? I assume he was respected highly as a player, but as a coach, you get a break.
I think that he got probably more of a break than other head coaches in that position would have had. Yes, absolutely. Um, he was there for 9 years as the head coach, and the kind of general story or general consensus was no one wanted to be the guy that fired Bart Starr.
Yeah,
But his teams, um, I don't think he had a team that got to 500, Matt, that had a 500 record, and,
yeah,
and they just weren't very good. They had good players at times, but they just weren't able to put it together. Um, some people said that they thought Bart was too nice of a guy to be a head
yeah,
coach, and I can understand why they would see it that way. I mean, but as far as talking to him and interviewing him and everything, he was always very polite and friendly and not difficult to deal with at all. But yeah, he struggled as a head coach. He
yeah. That's
just
why I think it's tough when you hire legends to be a head coach, because then you put yourself in that position that if it doesn't work out,
Right.
especially if I don't know what he did, like to build up, like was he like a running backs coach? Did he go through the process, or were they just like, you're a legend, come on in, we'll try it out.
Yeah, as far as I can recall, he wasn't any kind of an assistant or anything prior to being the head coach. He just kind of came in and took the job. And, you know, he wasn't that removed. Well, I guess it was a few years, but people tied him to the whole Lombardi era
Yeah,
because they won so many championships with Lombardi and Starr was the quarterback. So it was kind of assumed, well, hey, this guy's going to be the coach. We're going to win games. We're going to be a playoff team, maybe even a championship team.
yeah.
And that was kind of the assumption. And I think he got a break early on, but then as time went on, people started to get a little more critical, saying, "Hey, this isn't working. You know, there needs to be somebody else brought in to coach this team." So Bart was probably there longer than some people thought he should be as the head coach.
Yeah, I get that they don't want to fire him, and I get that. Like thinking like you played with Vince Lombardi, you learned a
Right.
lot from him. But yeah, I think that obviously they have a lot different. Bart Starr's really nice. Not to say Vince Lombardi wasn't a nice guy. I'm sure he was a lovely human when he wasn't yelling at players, during games. But
Right.
I think the same thing like with Matt LaFleur. I mean, he ain't out there yelling at everyone. When they're coaching, that's their job. They're getting on it, but they can be nice off the field. I'm not sure Ditka was ever nice. I'm not sure he was
Yeah.
ever nice.
And like I say, I never had any real direct contact with him. I mean, I interviewed Bear players
Who's
because the Packers.
who was a real memorable Bear player? Did you tell me like Walter Payton?
Well, Walter was so good that the reporters flocked around him after the game.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, I went back just to do a little research, knowing I was going to be chatting with you. And in 1979, the Packers lost to the Bears twice, both of the games. The one score was 6-3, Chicago won, and the other one was 15-14. So, but Walter Payton was not only was he a great player, but he was a good interview after the game. He always gave you some really good comments that you could put into a story. And as a reporter, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a
Yeah.
guy that's not just giving you, some kind of pat answers that they all say. Walter was pretty articulate, and he was interesting to talk to. So he's probably was one of my favorite interviews, I would say.
All right. Yeah, yeah. I've everyone that I've ever heard said that he was super nice. Obviously, that's why they have the Walter Payton, Man of the Year
Right,
award. You
right.
kind of says why. But yeah. So run through the team? Like you don't have to go through the whole team, but you're running the team. Um, see if I remember any of these guys because this was like I say, this is when I was
Well,
basically being born.
you're gonna remember some of them because some of them are not too many, but there are a couple that are in the Hall of Fame.
All right.
You remember James Lofton?
Yes, sir. I mean, I
Yeah,
remember more the name than actually seeing because, like, I want to say I was a kid and like when stuff
right.
started getting dicey, they kicked me out the house. It was the '80s. They're like, "Get out of here!"
Well, Lofton was probably their best receiver,
Yeah,
and by far, and he was a deep threat. If you wanted to throw long, he was the guy to throw it to. And he was with the Packers for quite a while, and then I recall he played, I think, with Buffalo for a little while, and he did a lot of announcing for the networks um, before he got into the Hall of Fame. So, um, uh, as far as the other guys go, again, this is before your time. There was a running back named John Brockington.
All right. Yeah, that name. I remember that name.
They traded for a quarterback by the name of Lynn Dickey,
Yes,
and,
sir.
and Lynn Dickey had a really strong arm, but he had a serious leg injury, so he couldn't run. He basically could barely run. So if you gave him time, he was a really good quarterback. Really threw the ball well and could throw it deep. But if he got pressured, he was in trouble. So, but they made a big effort to bring him in as the quarterback. There was a tight end by the name of Paul Kaufman that was pretty good.
Right.
There was a linebacker by the name of John Anderson that was pretty good. Another linebacker, Tim Harris.
Yeah, Tim Harris. I remember him because the cops would give out Packer cards to all the kids on
Right,
bikes and whatnot, and it
right,
seemed like they all had Tim Harris cards. Like you might
right.
get a few other ones, but they're like, let's put 90% all Tim Harris cards.
Right. And a lot of people, again, depending on how old they are, might remember Chester Markle as the field goal
Yep,
kicker. Um,
that
one of
famous
one of the
blocked touchdown
That's
there.
the one. Yeah, that's the one. Um, uh, I'm trying to think of other names that people would recognize from.
What year were you there when that happened? That blocked punt, whatever kick for a touchdown.
No, that came a little bit later,
Was it later?
if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because that would have been a cool interview. I think there's some stuff on YouTube or whatever because
right,
I talked about it before, but
right.
that's an interesting
Well,
story.
there was one game. You were kind of talking about memorable games a little while ago.
Yeah.
There was one game I went to kind of as a fan, and it was a Monday night game between Green Bay and Washington, and at Lambeau, and the Packers won like 49-48, and the score just went back and forth the entire game. It got down to 3 seconds left, and Washington lined up for a
Yep.
50-yard field goal that would have won the game. And the kicker for Washington, his name was Mark Mosley. He was usually pretty reliable. Well, he missed it, but that was an amazing game because the score just went back and forth the
Yeah.
entire game. Yeah,
Wasn't that
that's
like
not,
considered like the best game ever? Like at that time, that's kind of what everyone kind of labeled it. This is the greatest game
yes,
ever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And what I remember, I was in the stands with my I think I was with my brother-in-law. He wasn't my brother-in-law at the time, but anyway, I don't remember sitting down, Matt, for
Yeah.
like three. Nobody sat down for 3.5 hours
Just
because
wildness.
every time you were going to sit down, something happened. Somebody scored, or somebody ran a kick back, or and the score just went back and forth until Mosley missed that field goal at the end, and then it was like everybody had a huge sigh of relief that the Packers had pulled that game out.
Yeah, that's a game. Like I don't remember it. I don't. What year was that? That was early '80s, wasn't it?
Early '80s, yes.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
was I was like 2 or 3. So I don't think that I don't remember what I did last Tuesday, let alone when I was that young. But yeah, that's a game I've always heard about. Monday Night Football. People talk about it being the greatest game ever. But
Right.
so let me ask you this: like Dickey, I saw someone posted. I don't know if it's real, but the Packers have Lynn Dickey jersey at the pro shop. If that's real, I'm gonna go get one and like just like to honor what it was, not just him, but like what the Packers came from. Like they're the 80s. Like I mean,
Right.
obviously they had some teams back in the day, every now and again, but they were for the most part not good. And just to honor that's what I think makes us so great as fans because back then we were still filling the stadium. Packer fans were still going crazy, didn't give up on them. And
Right.
now, hopefully we got some stuff going here in the future. But yeah.
Well,
But yeah, no, I want to ask you about Lynn Dickey. Who would you compare him to? Like the people that are watching and listening, um, like just his style of play. Like it doesn't have to be skill level, but just the style of play. Who would you compare Len Dickey to in kind of today, or even the last, whatever how many years that people would know?
Yeah, it's hard to compare them to the guys playing now because so many of them can run.
Yeah, everything is kind of running more now.
Yeah, you've got Mahomes and what's the young guy's name from Baltimore?
Lamar.
Yeah, and
I like
so
him. It's fun.
you got guys like that can move around. And what hurt Lynn Dickey was he just wasn't mobile. But he had such a strong arm. I'm trying to think of somebody to compare him to without going back too far.
Yeah, because back then, like I think being mobile was rare, right? I think Randall Cunningham
Right,
came along,
right,
but like
right,
most of the guys were just back there. Like Dan Marino was like
right,
what people like forget, but Joe Montana had like 4 Super Bowls, whatever, and he was winning championship. But a lot of people still argued Dan Marino is the best of all time. And like
right.
because he was so good at passing, he was arguably, in that conversation for sure. But like he wasn't mobile. Even Joe Montana, like you see that old classic play where he's rolling around, but he was definitely not known for
I
like
think, yeah, I think you make a good point with Marino. That might be a comparison to Dickey. Both of them were about 6'4", 6'5", strong arm, could put the ball on a dime when they threw it. Um, I think Marino might be a good comparison that people would remember. Um, if you watch highlight films of Marino, he should have stood in the pocket and
yeah.
just let it go. And Dickey was like that too.
Yeah, I don't really have any like memory of Dickey. Like I remember him being on TV, I believe like as a kid, but like I was a little kid. Like back when I was a kid, we'd watch football and all the kids would get amped up and we go run outside in the yard or the road and
Right,
play football. Like at halftime,
right.
we come in all hurt in like the fourth quarter. We were like kind of in our in our own little world. And then, like I say, a lot of times too, if there was a tense game, the adults just told us to get out. They're like, we're gonna do some swearing and maybe some fighting,
Right.
lots of drinking. Get out of here.
Well, what's interesting too is we're talking quarterbacks a little bit. If you go from the time that Bart Starr retired as a player, and you look from that point forward, the Packers went through an awful lot of quarterbacks before we got to a guy that people remember like Brett Favre.
Yeah,
There were a
and
lot of
and and before him, the old Magic Man right here.
right, and that's another interesting game. And again, I was at that game as a fan. Um, Gronkowski was the quarterback, and he got hurt, and nobody knew how serious it was, but he was pretty much done for the season. And they brought in this guy named Brett Favre, and it was like, who's this guy? Right? Nobody even knew who he was, and Green Bay was down like 24-3, and Favre threw a couple interceptions. He fumbled a snap, and it's like, man, this is not going to go well. Well, in the second half, he threw 3 touchdown passes, and the Packers won 27-24.
So
And
you're in there, dude.
Favre,
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was
No, I
going
was
to
gonna
say,
say like you
Favre,
were there, like we got like a delay over here. But what was it like being in the stands? You got to watch that because obviously, like I remember that, like watching on TV and like I don't have like crazy memory of it, but I remember.
right.
But what was it like being in the stands? Like, what was the vibe? Like, what was everyone's thought? Like, was it like, hey, this guy is our new quarterback? Brett Favre is going to take us to the promised land, or was it like, do you think maybe it was a fluke, or like what was the thought process
Well,
there?
I mean, I think people were kind of obviously stunned because no one had seen Favre play before, on that level, and the average fan didn't know how serious Mikowski was hurt at that
Yeah.
point. I mean, if you talk to Don Mikowski after he retired, he had I don't know how many surgeries on that particular leg injury that he had. His career was pretty much over, and Favre became the guy. But at that point, people didn't know what Favre was going to do. One of the criticisms of Favre when he first started playing was that he would try and force the ball into a receiver. He wouldn't throw it away. He wouldn't throw it out of bounds.
That's what I do on Madden, and I'm not good at it.
Yeah. And sometimes people would cheer if nobody was open, and he would throw the ball out of bounds. It was like well, that's what you're supposed to do, and then do something on the next play, But at that time, I don't think anybody knew that Favre was going to be as good as he was. I mean, he'd only played that one game against Cincinnati when Mikowski got hurt, so nobody knew what he was going to do at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was a big Don Mikowski fan. I think a lot of people probably were, but I remember playing football in my backyard with my friends, and we would trash Brett Favre. We were mad that he was like taking the job, and he's like, because Don Mikowski was the man. And I mean, he was hurt obviously, but as kids, we didn't know the details or care. We just knew that our favorite player was getting played. But then it didn't take long. We're like, all right, this Brett Favre guy, he might be onto something.
One of the plays that Mikowski was kind of known for or became famous for, you may remember this, Matt. They were playing the Bears, and Mikowski was scrambling, and he threw the ball into the end zone for a touchdown, but it looked like he had crossed the line of scrimmage when he threw it, so that would have nullified the touchdown. Yeah. So they did a replay look, and the replay showed that he was just behind the line when he let it go. So the touchdown was good. The Packers won. They beat the Bears. And, of course, everybody's happy when you beat the Bears, right?
Were you at that game?
No, I wasn't at that one. Yeah.
That's like one of the most historic games, especially in that era.
Right. Yeah. So at that point, I think everybody was excited about Mikowski, especially after years of going through a bunch of other quarterbacks. Yeah. They thought, wow, this guy looks pretty good,
Yeah, he was an absolute legend. I want to get to a comment over here. Give a shout out. Hey, Matt, finally caught you live. Can we, the Brazilian Cheeseheads, get a shout out? Go, Pack, go. Go, Pack, go. And, dude, I have this sound machine, and I appreciate you tuning in. I know you can't hear because I asked you earlier. I'm trying to work on this sound machine. So I'm going to play a sound, and everyone watching, let me know if you can hear the sound so I know, like, how to fix this. All right, here we go. Go, Pat, go. So if you don't hear the sound, I probably sounded like an idiot. But if you did hear it, I probably still sound like an idiot. But let me know in the chat if you heard that, because I'm trying to figure this out so I can use this for voicemails to do call-in shows and just to have cool sounds. Who doesn't want to have cool sound effects? Matt Green, Favre is probably the most impactful player the Packers ever had. What do you think about that, Greg?
Wow, it's hard to argue against that. I mean, quarterbacks, in the last 40 years, you've had two quarterbacks, Favre and Rodgers, right? They both played for 20 years on the team. So, I guess somebody could argue that Rodgers was more of an impact than Favre, and some people would say Favre had more of an impact than Rodgers. They both won one Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, I don't know how you would argue against Favre being the most impactful player that the Packers had during that time. I mean, they had other really good players. We talked Reggie White a little bit before. Reggie certainly was an impact player with the Packers.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
In that era, I feel like you could argue Reggie was more. And I mean, I would go Favre in that era because like that whole thing. I feel like Favre. They're like, we had the quarterback. They felt like Favre was the quarterback. So let's get him some help. Let's get some pieces. Let's win a Super Bowl. And Holmgren, they brought him in. So Favre was like kind of like that golden token of what started the transformation. Obviously, it wasn't just him, but he brought the Packers back not just to being good and winning the Super Bowl, but to being respected. Where like you're watching Monday Night Football and they're talking about, oh, we're at Lambeau Field, John Madden and all this stuff, and the Green Bay kind of was respected again because I feel like before that they're like, yeah, Green Bay, the fans own it and that's all fun and cute, but they're garbage, they're trash, they don't win nothing. They're
Right.
basically like the Bears are now, and but also I want to thanks for people who say that they didn't hear the sound. I got to figure this out because I could hear it. That was the Go Pack Go like from at the stadium. I'm gonna have some cool sounds once my I just gotta smarten up and learn some stuff. But yeah, I think that I wouldn't argue with anyone that says Favre's most impactful, especially at that time. I mean, if you go back, to the '60s, I don't think you could. But I think whenever you're talking about the Packers, the '60s should be in their own. Like no, you shouldn't compare anyone to the '60s teams because
Right.
first of all, the
I
game
would.
was different. They were
Right.
it was so good, but like you can't compare like what Bart Starr was doing to like what Aaron Rodgers was doing, or even
No.
whoever any
No.
quarterback in
I
the league
would.
today, because the rules.
Right. I agree with you completely. It was a different era. They didn't play as many games. Um, Packer players, most of them in the off season, had another job.
Yeah,
They weren't making a lot of money. Some of them would work at car dealerships, or a few of them had restaurants in the area, um, and things like that. Uh, yeah, it was a different game back then. There was more emphasis on running the ball.
yeah,
Now the game has changed so much that it's like you've got to have the quarterback, and it's okay if he can run, but he better be able to throw also,
yeah,
and move the ball down the field by throwing. So the game and a lot of the rules have changed now when it comes to pass interference and things like that. So it's a passing game. In the '60s, it was like give the ball to the running backs. We're going to run the Packer sweep. Everybody's heard of
yeah,
the Packer sweep, right? And
yeah. And
and
they'd tell them, "Hey, we sweeping, baby." I don't know if they
yep,
told them, but everyone knew what was happening.
everybody knew what was happening. It was like we're going to run it down your throat until you stop us.
And
Yeah,
it was so violent that, like, now they get
right,
arrested. Like Ray Nitschke would like pick people up and just throw them on the ground like they were like a bag of salt. Yeah. So
right,
like I think that's the thing that people don't really take into consideration when talking about Bart Starr or even the other players at that era, like how strong they were. Not that the guys today are weak, but like they would
right,
just get bodied. And they had cheap helmets. Like today's they had those helmets today. They'd probably obviously a lot of those
right,
guys had concussions. But like it was just a violent game. So to even be able to stay on the field. Maybe that's why they didn't throw too much. They're like the quarterback can't hold the ball too long because they're gonna get murdered out there. That's our guy.
right. Right, right. At times, it seemed like the passing game was just okay. We're in this situation where we kind of have to throw it, but otherwise, we're going to run the ball at you as much as we can. And Star was really great because he'd call his own plays, and he kind of knew just when it was the right time to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So I remember a lot of times, Matt, they'd line up 3rd and 1, and you go, well, he's going to give it to a running back. They only need 1 yard for a first down, right? And he'd fake it to a running back and throw it to one of his receivers for a touchdown. That kind of became a Bart Star trademark.
Yeah.
Is like, yeah. So
Yeah.
you
No
never knew
radios in their
when.
head, calling their own
Yeah,
numbers.
none of that. Bart Star, for the most part, called his own plays. Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to shout out to Matt over here. Yeah, I agree. As far as like he's saying, I said it because I feel like there's no other player that changed our whole organization like Favre did, and I agree. Like at that time, I mean there was other pieces to it, but he was definitely that player that even gave him hope that they can do it. So I think
Right.
Holmgren was
Yeah.
huge. I think Holmgren and Favre together were so huge. I think just the same thing with Lombardi and Starr, and then you can go off a lot of other quarterbacks. I feel like when you're a quarterback and you're put in the right system with the right coach that knows how to talk to you and knows how to get the best out of you, I think that
Right.
I think that's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there, some people may remember, there was a general manager by the name of Ron Wolf,
Yes,
and
sir.
he was the one that made the deal to get Favre to Green Bay. And I'm sure he had a lot to do with getting Reggie to Green Bay. And then he brought in a bunch of other players from teams that were pretty good complementary players. Um, so they built the team kind of with trades, and then on top of that, Favre worked out. I mean, as well as anybody you could hope for. So
Yeah,
it all kind of
made those
came
teams fun.
together, Yeah.
Yeah, those were really fun teams. All right, so I want to talk to you a little bit. This is fun talking about the old times, but I want to talk to you about some modern times. We got
Sure.
we got some news that going around. I want to ask it. Everyone in the chat, chime in too. Hammer the comments. Jair Alexander. At the beginning, like it was kind of being reported. I've been paying attention. Where there's no chance basically that Jair is going to be a Packer next year. Like coming off the offseason, like injuries, salary, all that, not going to happen. They're going to trade him, but I don't think they got the trade offers that they wanted. It wasn't working out for them. They're like, well, what it was kind of reported like they'll release him, which I thought was kind of, I don't know. It's weird that you wouldn't get at least something out of him. I get that teams ain't going to throw first, high round picks at you because with the injury situation. But now we're hearing that they're in talks, and it's almost sounding like if the reports are true, I'm not saying they're not, but I just don't know the person that reported it. That they're in talks right now to kind of work on that contract, and it looks like there's a much better chance that Jair is going to be a Packer next year. Like I said, like I don't know the details of like if that. I assume it's true. I don't know. I don't like to call reporters like, well, I don't believe them. You know what I mean? Because I've done it in the past, and first of all, I was wrong every single time. So I I don't do that no more. But do you think Jair Alexander will be a Green Bay Packer this season? And everyone in the chat, let me know what you think about this.
Well, I think that he'll be a Packer this coming season if, and I got to qualify this with an if,
Yeah.
okay? If he's willing to play for incentives that involve things like the number of games played and things like that, because with his history of injuries, you can understand why the Packers are going to say, look, we got to be able to count on this guy for X number of games.
Yeah.
So he's got to stay healthy and stay on the field. So if we give an incentive that involves number of games played, or however they break it down, number of minutes played, or whatever, I could see that being part of a deal for him. The other thing is that the Packers might go, how many years do we want to give this guy on a contract? So would he sign a 1-year deal? Would he be willing to sign a 1-year deal?
I think that he might because I don't know how they're gonna do the contract. If it's gonna be restructured, like how they're gonna work it.
Right.
I don't put a lot of money. A lot of players like, yeah, I'm gonna need my money. I don't know that. I think it's gonna be hard to say, hey, we're gonna take all this money from you and give you this small 1-year deal. I don't think that would work. But on a 1-year deal, he could prove it. Like he could come out, ball out. And then if he does move on next year, then he could get big time payday. But he is getting up there in age. Not that he's old by any means. I'm not definitely going to call him old. I'm 45, but he's getting up there like as a player. I think it's going to be hard, but like there could be some incentives. Like they add some incentives. Like, hey, if you play this, like you said, you play this amount of games, you get this many interceptions, you get this many whatever stat they see important, passes blocked down, all that stuff. Then you're gonna still get a lot of money, but you got to be on the field to do that.
I agree with you. I think that Green Bay would like to have him back because there's no, in my mind anyway, when he's on the field, Matt, he makes a difference.
Dude.
There's no question he makes a difference. And they've shuttled through some people in the defensive backfield, and here's a guy that when he's on the field, it's obvious that he's their best defensive back.
Yeah.
So if they can work the details out with him, and he's not getting a lot of interest from other teams anyway, my guess is that he's going to be back.
Yeah, I think that they'll figure it out. I think the fact that they're talking now, which seems like they are, he's not participating in off-season activities. Like earlier, they were like he is, but I think that was like Zoom, the pre stuff. That was before the draft.
Right.
So then now he's not, but that makes sense. If you're working on a contract situation, like people always say, like, this player's a diva, that player's a diva, but like if they're working on a contract situation, neither side wants you to especially early on. Like, I mean, I'm sure the Packers
Right.
would like him to be there, but I don't think it's super important that like, whatever, like anything he's missing. And I don't even
Right.
think because rookie minicamp just was going on, so I'm not sure what the veterans were even doing. But yeah, I do believe that they'll figure it out. I didn't think so even like a week ago, but now I'm leaning more that I think they'll figure it. And I think it's important. Like the Packers defense is hugely different when Jair
I mean,
Alexander is on the field.
if to me, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to just outright release him.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense to me. So if they can agree on the details, and Zaire's like, well, I'd kind of like to stay in Green Bay anyway because I like where the team's going. I think there's an opportunity for us to win a championship, and I want to be part of that. Uh, I think there's some incentive there for him to stay, and for the Packers to go, okay, let's see what we can do here with this guy, what we can get out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a better team with them. They just got to figure out all this stuff. I see a lot of people chiming in here. They'll throw a comment up over here. After last season, I was all about trade Jair. The guy can't stay healthy, so only via a good restructure, I'd be happy with him coming back. Yeah, and I get that point of view for sure because you want the guys on the field, but he's so good. Like if they, like I say, the money's got to be right because the Packers are saying to him, "Hey, we can't pay you. You're not on the field enough to pay you this big. You're getting paid big money. You're getting paid top corner money, or at least when he signed it. I'm not sure where it ranks now, but it's a lot of money. So they're saying we can't put out that kind of money with we're not getting our money's worth. So
Right.
I think he would get that too, but like I think it's hard to tell a player we're gonna take a pay cut because like if my job came to me as I take a pay cut, like, I don't think so, bud.
Yeah, that's a tough sell.
But he knows
And
the business.
I don't know off the top of my head how long Zaire's been in the league, but I
Wasn't it
know it's
18?
long.
I think he was drafted at 18.
Okay.
If I'm right, the chat will tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So let's say 7 years for the sake of conversation. The guy's kind of looking at how many more years can I play? Where can I get a deal that's really going to set me up for a few more years,
Yep.
barring injuries that take me out of the game completely, which is always a possibility. Just
Yep.
that one injury and your career is over. So I definitely don't want to take much of a pay cut when I don't know how many years I'm going to play yet.
Yeah, because it's guaranteed. Like if he's got it locked in, like I'm not a cap expert by any means, but like if he's
Right,
saying I can get this money because I don't know what's gonna come next year. I don't know. I don't think his career's over by any means, but like, and
right,
I feel like he's probably confident in himself too. Like if I play, I'm gonna stay healthy. Obviously you got to have that mindset. And
right,
if on the field for all the games, if he does, or even if he plays 90% of the games, he's gonna have a good year. Like he's good when he's on the field, and but
right.
that's if he's not hobbled too. You know what I mean? You can't be coming off an injury because for a corner that cuts your game a lot if you're, not as fast,
Yeah.
not as be able to move around like you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of look at it like any other employment situation. If we can count on Matt to show up on his job every day and do what
Like,
he's supposed to do,
I'm
you
on a
know.
final warning, bro. I use
Well,
all the sick days.
maybe I shouldn't have used you as an example. I don't know, but you get the
Yeah, don't
general
use me.
idea.
They get surprised when I show up. No, no, it's not that bad. But yeah, but all right. So let's bounce over to Romeo Doubs. All right, Romeo Doubs. There's some reports coming out today that I think the Steelers, I think it was the Steelers, were interested in trading for him and maybe sent the Packers an offer. I don't think this was a smart idea. I know a lot of people are like, get rid of him. The concussions and whatnot. I think Romeo Doubs. I said this on Twitter earlier, and people got mad at me. They said it was bad. But I think Romeo Doubs is part of the Packers' plans for the future. Like when they're thinking about what this team looks like, I think Romeo Dobbs is in that picture. Obviously, the concussion thing is scary, just not even just for the team, but for him. But I think Romeo Dobbs can be a dude, and you don't. I think people are thinking like, oh, get rid of Romeo Dobbs, trade him, get what you can, and then the rookie, Golden, just throw him in there. But like, we don't need to throw him in there as a rookie where like the team is dependent on you to be like that star the first year. Hopefully he is, if he's going to get the opportunities for sure, no matter who's in that wide receiver room. But I would rather not have him be like, hey, you're the guy. And because Christian Watson's not going to be there but half the season, maybe. I don't know how long. But I would rather keep Romeo Dobbs. Plus, I like Romeo Dobbs. I think they all, like Wicks, all of them have to figure out the drop situation from last year. And I think they will. They've been working on it. I think it's gonna be good. But yeah, so what are your thoughts about Romeo Dobbs?
Well, correct me, Matt, if I'm wrong, but I think wasn't he one of the top receivers in terms of catches on the Packers?
Yeah,
And
I think so. There was a lot of drops. I don't know how many he had, but I know like Wicks struggled. I don't know all the numbers, but Romeo Dobbs I think was one of the higher targets especially when he was in the
right,
game.
I guess I guess that's what I was trying to say. I agree with the points you made. I think that and we could talk about just the core group of receivers they have. I guess minus Watson because we're not sure what's going to happen there. But I don't think you tinker around with it a whole lot. They drafted 2 receivers, and obviously they're going to work those guys into the equation.
Yeah.
You got a receiver that was your number 1 pick. Nowadays, he's probably not going to sit the bench a
Oh
lot.
no. Yeah.
They're going to put him in the game.
Yeah. He'll get his
Um,
opportunities.
and even the guy they picked second, I can't think of his name now, but he's going to get playing time too. So, but as far as Wicks and Dobbs and those guys, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think you stay with those guys, and
Yeah.
the more playing time they get, they run better routes. Hopefully, they hold on to the ball better, and injuries are going to happen. Hopefully, Dobbs
Yeah.
doesn't have any more concussion issues. But at this point, if you ask me, I wouldn't take him out of the mix
Yeah. I
unless
wouldn't either.
Pittsburgh's going to offer something so good for him that the Packers can't say no.
Yeah, that's the thing. If they offer something crazy, I could get it. But like, and they're gonna have some decisions to make after this season. I just don't think
Right,
right now, because when they drafted those wide receivers all kind of close together, same
right,
within a lot of them in 1 year, and then the next year, that makes like deals have to come up at the same time. So they're gonna have to make some
right.
decisions. That's why they drafted, 2 wide receivers, and they'll
Exactly.
work them in. And
Yeah,
but yeah, but I don't think this is the year to do it. I think you let them all be here. Don't get rid of Romeo Dobbs unless, like you say, the Steelers offer something stupid, which I don't think is going to
right.
happen. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Green Bay was 10-7 last year, right? So, and they didn't win the division, but they were a playoff team. So, let's say they win 12 or 13 games this year instead of 10, right? Um,
Yeah,
you don't tinker around with a team that wins that many games. You don't have to tinker around with the personnel on the field very much. It's
yeah,
working. You're winning games. It's working. So
yeah.
barring injury to people, leave it alone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Don't. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm definitely not with getting rid of Dobbs. Not wide receiver room. Uh, let the young guys even like learn from him a little bit. I know he's not like some veteran, but he's been in the league a little bit. I think, and hopefully Christian Watson comes back sooner or later. Christian Watson, when he's on that field, it's a different offense. When
Right,
just him having the threat of being able to just run past everyone, and then Golden's that same type of guy that can
right.
run really fast like that. But yeah, I think it's important to have someone. And if you have Golden and Watson, 2 fast guys, because that's going to be hard to cover. So, and then you got Tucker Kraft, I think is going to have a monster year.
Right. I
And
agree.
I just think this offense is in a situation where they can be really good, but the NFC North is gonna be tough. NFC North, it'll be the toughest division of football again. The schedules aren't easy for any. I was looking at the Lions away schedule, dude. I think I have. I don't know. Let's dig into it, but that's tough. And I think the Packers are probably similar, and
Right.
it's gonna be a battle this year. But I think the Packers offense is in a good situation. The defense, they got to get after the quarterback. They got to get a pass rush. I don't care who is rushing the passer. They have to get home. So they got to at least hurry them. They gotta make the quarterback respect that they can get flattened every now and again.
Right. I agree with you completely. I think I thought it was interesting this year that the Packers drafted at least with the first two picks anyway, offensive players. Because if you look at the history prior to this draft,
Yeah,
they've been taking nothing but defensive players. And the criticism was, hey, when are you going to do something offensively? It was almost like people were like, you're drafting too many defensive players. So now all of a sudden this year, the first two picks are receivers.
and I was stunned by that
So
too. I was stunned that
yeah,
first round wide receiver. I'm
yeah,
happy for it, but I was that's what I said earlier though. I was like, man, I bet they do draft a wide receiver in the first round just because I finally gave up on it. I finally was like, ain't ever gonna, and I don't really care because like to me, if they don't draft a wide receiver in the first round just to make fans happy and because people are yelling about it, like
right,
get the guys who you think is going to help the team best, get the best available. If Devontae Adams wasn't a first round wide receiver, so like
right,
not to compare everything to him, but like you don't have to. But if you're in a position, you're like, hey, this guy's going to be awesome. He's right here. We have him ranked right here. There you go. Grab him. But like, don't go early just to say, oh, we got one in the first round. Because Christian Watson, I think, was just outside the first round.
right. Well,
So
and I think the reason, I can't get inside the Packer front office, but I think the reason they took Golden was because of the question mark with Watson and whether he'll come back and be okay. So even though Golden is a shorter guy, a smaller guy, the speed is there, and they want to be able to throw the ball downfield to somebody that can make a big play. Well, we're not sure if Watson's going to come back to do that. So Golden hopefully kind of fits that role.
yep. Yeah, hopefully. And I have high hopes. I think dude, I got some like drama going on in my chat here. Like some lady's mad. I think dude, she's like cussing out Mark Zuckerberg just for the presence of my video showing up on her feed. that's, that's hilarious. Shout out to you, Mary. I don't think Zuckerberg did this to you, but thanks for tuning in. I guess I don't want to put it up there because it's crazy, but let's get to another comment. Tracy says, I can't wait to see the guys from Texas play in the green and gold. Yep, there you go.
Mhm.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see all these rookies. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We've been over here almost an hour and 10 minutes now. I appreciate everyone who has tuned in, who entered the chat. Mary, sorry about that, showing up on your feed. Dude, she says that I think she called me a hacker. And she's like,
Really?
get off my account. This is hilarious. She's like, get off my account. I'm like, who's on your account? What's going on here, Mary? I hope everything gets better for you. All right, we're going to wrap this thing up. Greg, I appreciate it. It was good to meet you, talk football. You have some cool stories, my man. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Anytime, Matt. I'm more than happy to join you again, and you know, I enjoy your show as a fan, and you do a great job of just coming across as another fan, and people kind of gravitate towards that. I think so. Keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
Hey, I appreciate that. That means a lot. That's all I am. Just a fan, average dude, and it's cool to have people come on, and I'm fortunate to talk to like some cool people, but just like meeting fans and like you, and like most people I know, that's how I met them. Like, hey, want to come on my podcast, or you want to, or just start talking Packers in the comment section or whatever. that's what makes this so fun. I have an absolute blast doing this.
Well, I can understand that. There's a chance I could get back to Wisconsin again, and I love coming up to Green Bay just to see the whole stadium thing and the Hall of Fame and all that. Even though I've done it before, so hey, maybe we can hook up in person sometime. Even.
Yeah, for sure. If you're over by Lambeau Field, let me know, and we'll
Okay.
during the season and whatnot, we'll definitely link up. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and hammering the chat. People in the comments makes it so much more fun when we're interacting and whatnot. But we are out of here. Go Pack, go!
All right. Yeah. Now right. Green Bay faithful, talking with me on a chase to a Super Bowl. Bands